Good evening, good evening. I don't know if Danny Cross is on the line with me. He's David Marcus. Are you online? I don't know who's online. I don't see anybody online. Anybody there? Danny, are you alive? Give it a minute. Maybe some people, maybe Danny will get on up. So is Danny Cross there? Danny Cross there. David Marcus, who's been part of the learning on Monday nights in Gemarah. Yom and David Tepper, okay? You have a Gemarah Gittin with you? Come, let's learn. You have a Gemarah Gittin? You have a Gemarah Gittin, take it out. We're holding on the Gemarah Gittin of Vav Amud Aleph 6, chapter, blot number 6. We're holding, if you have the article, we're holding on 6A3. 6A3. So if you have the article, that would be good. If not, you can listen in to the Gemarah, learning some Gemarah. So this is a beautiful Gemarah Gittin, which deals with divorce, but really, over here, the Gemarah really deals with a concept of a shtar, of a document, because the divorce that is done in the Torah is a document. Just like you get married with a ksuba, you get divorced with a get. It's called a get. In the Torah, it's called a get krisus, a get of divorce. And this is a very complicated document, because it's based on a pasuk of the Torah. The Torah says the cost of law, and there's many that has to be written for her, and you cannot just a pre-printed get. You need to have a divorce paper that is written for the person who is being divorced. That's why the Gemara says the cost of law l'shma. It needs to be written l'shma for the sake of the get. So the Gemara is over here dealing. The Gemara asks a question. No, so the Mishnah says that to bring a document from a different country, let's say you bring a document from Chutz La'aretz, from America, to Eretz Yisrael. So the Mishnah says you're supposed to say Lefanei nechtam, Lefanei nechtam. You're supposed the agent that brings the document needs to say, in front of me it was written, in front of me it was signed. That's what the Mishnah says. It has to see the person, the agent, the one who brings the document from overseas, needs to say it was signed and written in front of him. The question is why? Why does the Mishnah say it needs to be done that? So there's a machlekes, there's an argument in the Gemarah. The Gemarah argues between Rab and Rava, two sages. One says the reason is because that there's no witnesses that are going to be able to verify the document. There's no witness that will be able to verify the document. Because the document needs like a notary public, where you have like American notary public. How do we know that the document is a valid document? What's the problem with us knowing that a document is a valid document? Because the husband can come later and say, it never was a valid document. This was a forgery. It was a forgery. How do we know that's a valid document? That's why, that the witnesses signed it, maybe the witness was maybe these signatures were forged. So therefore, the agent that's bringing this document needs to say, the agent becomes like the notary public. They need to say that it was written and signed before me. I know who the witnesses were. I know where it was written and where it was signed, and now they become, the document is verified. Once a document is verified in Bezdin, in a court, in front of three Bezdin, in front of three Dayanim, in front of three sages, the document is verified. Now the husband can come and say the document is forgery, and we were not going to accept the document. There are those who say the reason is because in America, in comparison to Israel, the knowledge of learning is not so great. And therefore, they're not going to know exactly how to write a document in America or out of Israel. and it might come to a mistake in America. And therefore, we want to make sure that the witness, that the agent comes and says that everything was done correctly in America. And that's the two reasons of the Mishnah. Now the Gemarah holding on we're holding on the sixth blot. 6 blot of Gemarah Gittin. If you have the article, that would be the best. 6A3. We're holding on in that page. And we're holding on the right hand column. Right column. The right column, the bottom of the page, and the bottom of the right column. Rabbi Chanan related the following story. Rav Kahana, Aisi Gita, is following story that happened. Rav Kahana brought a get, V'layadana, and he didn't know if it was from Surya to Nadoi. These were places in Bavel. These were places in Babylon at that time, which is in Syria, Iraq area. This, I think, was Syria. He didn't know if it was Surya to Nadoi or Nadoi to Surya. Also, the comment of Rav. So Rav, if you remember, the Gemara says before, Rav, who was in Syria, and Shmuel was Nadoi. These were two great sages who ran great Talmudic academies in Syria, in Bavel. At that time, it was called Bavel. But they ran these great academies, and they said actually that Bavel knows as good as Israel. Rav and Talmud Bavli. So they said that Bavel knows the knowledge of Torah as good as Israel knows, and therefore in Syria you don't have to just like in Israel, you don't have to say in front of us it was signed, in front of us it was written. So too in Syria. But the problem was they went from Syria to Nadoi, or Nadoi to Syria. So also the comment that Rav, they came before Rav and they said, what do we do with this get? What do we do with this document? So the Rav Amalei, so Rav told him, they asked the question, do we need to say b'fanei nechtam or b'fanei nechtav? Do we need to say it or we don't need to say it? Amalei, so Rav answered to him, you don't have to say it. Because again, Rav held that in these areas they were great sages. But if you've done it, if the witness, if the agent is going to say it, ahanis, it'll be better. But they don't need to say it. But if they say it, it'll be even better that they say it. In fact, the Gemara asks a question. Rav, we know Rav says that Surya, Nadoi, these places were great sages, and we don't need to have any worry about it. So why would Rav say that it's going to help? What do you mean that if he does it, if the agent says, if written in front of me and signed in front of me, it's going to help? So the Gemara says, the asalei balamada, if the husband will come, and the husband's going to say that the document this get is a forgery, then we're not going to listen to him. We will ignore him totally. We will tell him, go blow. In simple terms. No, I don't think they said go blow in Bavel. But tell them go blow. That's it. It's not accepted, and you can go. And this get is a good get. The Tanya, the Gemara continues. The Tanya, we looked in the Mishnah. There once was a story. They brought a get into Rabbi Shmuel. This was in Eretz Yisrael. They brought a get in Eretz Yisrael. And we know that in Eretz Yisrael, you don't have to say the Mishnah, you don't have to say nechta in general. The Mishnah says someplace in Eretz Yisrael we do, but in general, in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, you don't say that because they're all knowledgeable officially. So it's funny, those days, maybe today it's changed. But hey, get Rabbi Shmuel, they came before Rabbi Shmuel, they gave him a get. They asked Rabbi Shmuel, do we need? Does the agent need to say that it's in front of me, it was signed, in front of me it was written, or you don't need to say it? So Rabbi Shmuel told him, "Beni mehechanata, my son, from where are you from?" He told him, "I come mikvar simoi ani. I come from a kvar, a little kvar." A little shtetl, a little gathering, kvar, little village. Kfar is a village. I come from a village that's called Simoy. Because Simoy Amalei, so Rabbi Shmuel said, Tzarach ataleim for nechtav. He says, you come from there and you're bringing a get to Yerushalayim, then you need to say b'fanei nechtav. You need to say it. Why? Shloi tizak leidim. So we shouldn't have to worry. He told him the reason. We shouldn't have to worry about finding witnesses from Kfar Simoy. We're far away from there. And how are we going to find the witnesses that signed this document if we need to validate it? So therefore, the best thing, you validate it in front of us, and we'll accept the validation. So when this guy left in front of Rabbi Shmuel, he left. So Rabbi Loi came to him. And Rabbi Loi said to him, Rabbi Shmuel, what do you mean? Kfar Simoy is a city that is in Eretz Yisrael. We know that the Mishnah says in Eretz Yisrael, a city in Eretz Yisrael the agent does not need to say, in front of me it was signed, in front of me it was written. So what are you saying? That's against the Mishnah. So what are you talking about? It's close to the city of Tzipori than Akui is, and we know that the Mishnah, if you remember the Mishnah says that Akui is the furthest border that we north of Eretz Yisrael that we're going to accept it as part of Eretz Yisrael for this law. If someone's the north of Akui is part of Eretz Yisrael, but concerning this law that they are closer to Yerushalayim, we want to have closer to Yerushalayim. Because closer to the Yerushalayim, the Sanhedrin is closer to Yerushalayim. And whatever's closer to the Sanhedrin is, so to say, knows the law better, is more connected to the Torah law, and more connected to the law in general. So he said this is closer. This is closer than Akui, and Akui is the one that is a problem. Utanan, we learned in the Brisa, Akui ke'eretz Yisrael, Gemarah Gittin. Rameir said, Akui is like Eretz Yisrael. So if this is closer than Akui is like Eretz Yisrael when it comes to divorce. So what are you talking? I feel that Rabbanon leiplikal that I may, even those that argue. Rabbanon elam Akui de mechakna. They're talking about Akui. There are those who argue with Rameh, and they say Akui is not like Eretz Yisrael. The ones who held that Akui is too far away from Yerushalayim. It's very far. If you drive from Akui to Yerushalayim, it's a distance, a couple hour driving. You can imagine those days, it was could have been a couple of days traveling. So these days, it's a couple hours driving. He says, oh, it's too far. Akui is too far. It's too much of the distance, Akui from Yerushalayim. But even the rabbis who hold the Akui is too far, Kfar Simoy, the Mikrabai, they wouldn't agree with that. They would hold Kfar Simoy was the closest city to Yerushalayim. So Amalei, so Rabbi Shmuel answered, Shtoik mini shtoik, my child, be quiet. Be quiet. He says, Hoyo v'yotza adov v'heter. Since I already told the guy to say b'fanenecha yotza, let it, because this is going to be a leniency, because if the guy's going to say b'fanenecha, anybody's going to come and is going to argue with the witness, is not going to be accepted. Once the witness says in front of a bezdin that that it was written and signed in front of him, that's the best thing to do. And nothing can come and challenge. That's like the best, what do you call the best notary public, notary, that it says that in front of a bezdin, in front of three people, we have a guy that says it was written and signed. That's the best way to validate a shtar in front of a bezdin. Now the bezdin gives a stamp, the court gives a stamp, and it's good. So that's what he answered it. So Rabbi Eloi disagreed. So the Gemarah says, Rabbi Shmuel also said, the agent, that the guy who brings it is to make the declaration so that the woman is not dependent to finding witnesses, right? So the Gemarah says, they did not conclude Rabbi Shmuel's statement when they repeated it before Rabbi Loi, so Rabbi Loi didn't understand Rabbi Shmuel. If he would have heard the whole statement of Rabbi Shmuel, the why he doesn't need to say B'fanei Nechtam, because once the guy says B'fanei Nechtam, once the agent says it was written, signed in front of me, the agent is now validated in front of a court. If Rabbi Loi would have heard that, he wouldn't have said anything either, because that would be the best situation to do. That's the best way to validate a thing. So in essence, even Rabbi Shmuel, because the Mishnah says anything in Eretz Yisrael doesn't even have a funny nechtam. You don't have to, the agent does not need to say, in front of me was written, in front of me was signed, but self-understood will be a much better situation. So the Gemara goes to another situation. Rabbi Vesa sent the following ruling to Rabbi Chisda. Gittin aboy misham lekar. A get that comes from Bavel. A get that comes from Babylon. That's the Talmud Bavli. Comes from Babylon, from the learnings of Rav and Shmuel. Comes from Babylon. This get, this document. It lands now in Eretz Yisrael. It comes to Israel. So what's the question? Do they not need to say in front of me, was it in front of me to sign? What do we need? What do you need? What's the law? So lema kasava, if you ain't bekin l'shma, maybe you might think that the reason that the rabbi asked the question because maybe in Bavel, in Babylon, they're not so knowledgeable. Vahani gimiri, but that's not true, because in Bavel they were extremely knowledgeable. We're learning Masechta, we're learning Talmud Bavli. So in Bavel, maybe in America they're not so knowledgeable, or in other parts of the world they're not so knowledgeable, but in Bavel they're extremely knowledgeable. So the question is, why would even the Gemara have a thought? Why would even the Gemara ask such a question? Why the Gemara ask a question? Rabbi still agrees with Rava. The reason is not because. Problem is that you're not going to find the witnesses. That's really the problem. It has nothing to do with the smartness and the not smartness of Bavel, and they're scrupulous or not scrupulous. We are worried about the witnesses being validated. That's the problem. So even though they know the laws in Bavel, what is that going to help the witnesses? The guy now is in Eretz Yisrael. The witnesses are from Bavel, from Babylon. He's now in Eretz Yisrael with the get. On this get is assigned two witnesses. How now in Eretz Yisrael from Bavel, how are you going to be able to validate the get? It wasn't such easy to travel between Bavel and Eretz Yisrael in those days. So how are we going to validate this get? So therefore, that's the problem. Even if that in Bavel they are all clear, self-understood. Rav and Shmuel were in Bavel. They had great places of learning, and everybody was knowledgeable, and there were great studies, and everybody knew the laws, etc., etc. But the problem was, the witnesses are not going to be in Israel when the get comes to Israel. And who says will ever see the witnesses in Israel? So what is that going to help? So the Gemara says, L'kulam bin l'kaimen. Therefore, we all agree. You have to confirm. We need to confirm this get. And therefore, a get that comes from Bavel, even from Adah and Pumedisa, these great places of learning, needs to have validation. And what's the validation is that the agent says in front of court, in front of this was written, and in front of me this was signed. And that validates this document. Now the document has been validated. The court will give a stamp to the document that has been validated, and now nobody can come and try to challenge the document. So, but the problem. So what's the issue? What was the Gemara's question concerning Bavel to Eretz Yisrael? But the thing is that the Gemara disagrees with what I said before. The Gemara says there are a lot of people traveling between Bavel and Eretz Yisrael. There are constantly people going from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael and from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, because the great house of learning, Rav and Shmuel, and the sages traveled, and students and traveled, and families traveled from one place to the other place. So therefore, the rabbis held that from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, you don't need to say it. V'shkichi, shchichi. So they're found always people between the two places, and we'll find the witnesses will be found. Even the Babylonian witnesses will be found in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, that's the Gemara answer. So the Gemara does not disagree with that. Rabbi Yosef said, "Man leim alahan Rabbi Yosef basamcha." Who tells Rabbi Yosef is reliable? Right. Furthermore, Ha'iyud Shal Rabbi Yehuda, for he's the one who sent the following letter to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosef sent the following letter to Rabbi Yehuda. V'nei Adon ha'elim mishon lekan. People who come from there, Babylon, to here, Yisrael, hein kaimu b'hatzman, have fulfilled in themselves the idea in the following verse. The verse says, "Vayitnu asehela bezoyna, vayalda marchu b'yayim vayishtu." They have given the boy for a prostitute, and the girl they sold for wine, and they have drunk. Whoa! So what's the meaning of that part? This is a pasuk in Yoel. That is why leaving their wife by leaving their wives in Babylon and traveling to Eretz Yisrael for extended periods, these students demonstrate the lack of importance they attach towards their relationship with their wives and fathering of their children. Whoa! Because of Lei Balshita, and Rabbi Yosef continues, Rabbi Yosef wrote this verse on the paper without scored lines. And Rabbi Yitzchak said to him, Shnayim Kesuvim, when you're writing a text of a verse, 2 words may be written without scoring of lines for them. Shloisha ein kesuf. We know the words of the Torah need to be, when you write a Sefer Torah, you have to score the lines. You have to make like an indentation. They do, I'm not a Sefer, but before they write the Torah, they make like a little indentation on the it's called shitut. They make an indentation on the klaf and make it like a line. It's like you take like a it looks like a line. It's like just because they do something on the back of it, and they make it look like a line, and they write the Torah on that line, so it keeps them straight. It keeps the line straight. It's called shitut. You have to. So when you Torah Shebiksav, when you write Torah Shebiksav, you're writing it down on those days or everything on parchment. So you're writing it down. Yeah, if you do 2 words from a pasuk, you don't have to put these lines. If you do 3 words, you have to make the lines because it's like you're writing a Torah. So the second you're writing a Torah, you have to put a shitut. You have to make these lines. So shalosh ein kesun, the 3 words may not be written without lines. So since Avesa wrote more than 3 words from the verse without scoring a line on the paper for them, it's apparent that he's insufficient knowledgeable to rely upon on legal matters. So then that's to say, who said Avesa, who challenged this whole law, who said this whole statement, is Bechlal reliable? We know that he's not reliable, and we have a story that proves he's not reliable. So now the Gemarah goes into this whole thing. That's the beauty of Gemarah. So now the Gemarah goes into this whole thing of 2 words and 3 words and the lines. So we must listen to we learned in a brayso. Shalosh kaisun, 3 words may be written without lines. Abba ain't a kaisun. You're now like 4 words without lines. So now we have a contradiction. Before we said 2 words without lines, 3 words with the lines. We know another Mishnah says 3 words without a line, and 4 words with a line, and 3 words even without a line. So you don't need 2 words, you need 3 words. 4 words, 3 words would be enough without a line. So Amalei Rabbi, so Amalei Abaye, so Abaye comes to back up Rabbi Avesa. Amalei Abaye said Rabbi Yosef ought to call the lo yada ha Rabbi Yitzchak. Maybe must it be that anyone who doesn't know that the ruling of Rabbi Yitzchak, Lav Gava Rabba, is not a great man? What are you trying to tell me? That makes a person great only if he knows the law of Rabbi Yitzchak. What if Rabbi Yisrael didn't know the law of Yitzchak? Lav Gava Rabba, is that not a great man? Bishlam Misal Toy B'Svara. I can understand you can talk a concept that's based on an intellectual aspect. Lechaye. You must very well assume that he's mistaken, shows he's not reliable. Hagamari, this rule of Yitzhak is an oral teaching. It's just a basic teaching. It's not a concept. He's not talking a svar. He's just telling you over what he learned from his teachers. That it needs to be a certain amount. You need to write a certain amount to have shita, to have a line, and a certain amount of letters you're not allowed to have without that making a line. So how would Avesa know this teaching? And if he didn't know this teaching, why would that make him less of a worthy person? Hagamari, this rule is an oral teaching. And maybe Avesa didn't hear this Gemara. This is oral law. This is called oral law. What means oral law? Oral law means it's given from mouth to mouth. So it's not everybody heard everything until Ravina Rashi, until the sages ultimately sat down and wrote the Gemara. This Gemara was all given orally. So some things the sages you heard, some things you didn't hear. So I was supposed to hear everything. But another reading, Avesa was one whose master gave his approval to him. Wow. So that's good. That's in the Gemara. We know a story. Avesa, the Eibishter agreed to Avesa. Where it's written in the pasuk that his concubine is strayed from him. So what is it talking about? This, let's go down here to the bottom, Judges. This refers to a tragic episode. This is a very famous tragic episode that happened with Pelegish Begiva, the concubine in Giva. A certain man became angry with his concubine, and she fled from his house. Before his wrath, he got angry at her with his concubine. Angry with his concubine. She fled from his house before his wrath. This began a chain of events that led the concubine's death at the hands of the residents of Giva. And the civil war broke out. This is a famous story that happened. A civil war broke out between between Benjamin and the other tribes of Israel. And the Gemara now debates whatever the concubine did in anger her husband and provoked his reaction. So this story, a concubine, I'm not going to go into laws of concubines, but there's a law of ksuba, isha b'ksuba. In those days, you could marry, men married more than one woman, and they married certain women b'ksuba, they married certain women with a marriage document, they married certain women without a marriage document. And there's a story that happened, that there was certain men who had wives, and he had a concubine, and they got a fight, and she ran away, and she ran to a certain city that was a tribe of Benjamin, and they protected her, and ultimately, which brought them a war in the Jewish nation, and Binyamin was chased out of the Jewish nation for a certain period of time. So what was the story? Nobody knows the story. So it says, Avesa Amar Zvuv Motzala. Avesa said he found a fly. He found a fly. She fed him some food, and he found a fly in his plate. And he got angry. Very angry. She fed him food with a fly in it, and it angered him. Rabbi Yonasan Amar Nima Motzala. Rabbi Yonasan said he found a piece of hair, and he got angry. V'ashked Avesa l'Eliyahu, and Avesa met Eliyahu Navi. Amalei Ma'ikav HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Avesa asked Eliyahu Navi, "What is the Holy One, blessed be He, doing? What is God doing right now?" Amalei also Pelegish Begiva. Eliyahu Navi said that God is busy with the story of this concubine. It's a terrible story that happened. She was murdered, and God is busy with this whole story. So he's busy with this. He's busy with this story. So because they were busy with the story. The sages were talking about the story. So he said, just like you are talking about the story, God is also talking about the story of Pelegish Begiva, of this story. So the Gemara says, my karma. So Avesa says, so what does God say? Amalei, Eliyahu says, Avesa beni kachoime. God says, Avesa, my son, says as follows. Yonis beni, and Yonis, my son, kachoime. And Yonis, so he says, Avesa, my son, says it was a fly. And Yonis, my son, says it was a piece of hair. Amalei, so Avesa said to Eliyahu, Chas v'shalom, Umi ika sfeika kami shmaya. So the Avesa says to Eliyahu, that's shocking. I can understand. We're arguing between me and Rabbi Yonasan. We're arguing, was it a fly or was it a piece of hair? But God knows what it was. So why is God in doubt what it is? He says, my Avesa says it was a fly, and Rabbi Yonasan says it was a piece of hair. God should know if it was a fly or a piece of hair. Amalei, so Eliyahu answered, Eilu ve'eilu v'dilekechem. Eliyahu answered, an unbelievable answer. He says, by the Eibush it's both a fly and a piece of hair. Eilu ve'eilu divelekim chayim. Now you understand, divelekim chayim, they're both right. The Eibush says both Avesa is right, and both Rabbi Yonasan is right. It was a fly. How is it possible both to be right? Zvuv matzav lo hikbid. He found the fly, but it didn't bother him, the fly. He moved the fly away. Mima matzah, but he found a piece of hair in his food. That's when he got angry. So he, in essence, the Gemara says that, what's the Gemara proving over here? You shouldn't have gotten angry with a fly or a piece of hair. But the Gemara is saying that in essence, the Eibush is interested in what Avesa says. But God is interested in both of these sages, Avesa and Avesa. He's interested in both. So there we see that Avesa was a holy person. God would not evaluate and say what Avesa says if it was a nobody. But why did the man get angry? Now the Gemara is bothered. Once you bring a Gemara down, the Gemara is bothered. Why would this man get angry over a fly, over a piece of hair? I'm not Yehuda. Zvuv. Rabbi Yehuda says, Zvuv bekaida. The fly was in the plate of food. V'neima ba'isa makom. Problem was that there was a zvuv and there was hair on her body. She had too much hair on her body. That's what got him angry. His wife had too much hair. Zvuv bi'isisa. The fly was just disgusting. V'neima sakanta. And here was a dangerous thing to him. It was a dangerous thing to him. Because, he felt that here would bring uncleanliness and would make him sick. And other people say both the fly and the hair was in the plate. Zvuv anusa. Zvuv, fly, flew into the plate. Can't blame this concubine. Name of Pshiusa, but that there was hair, that she cooked the food and there was hair in the food. That is carelessness. And he got angry for her carelessness. What is the lesson from the story? So Rab Chisda says, the lesson from the story is a person should never install excessive fear in his household. His household should be a loving, compassionate place. It shouldn't be that your wife or your husband with fear between one another. Because look what happened. a stupid fight between a husband and a wife. And she was so afraid of him that she ran away. V'ipila kama revavos Yisrael. And thousands of people died because of this plegish begiva, this stupid fight that was brought about in the house of a Jewish person, came about that she ran away and she hid in this tribe, and then they went out to war against this tribe, and they killed thousands of people, and it was a terrible situation, tragic situation, and it all came about because husband got angry. Stupid situation, which is a great lesson to learn what anger brings to the world. Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rab, whoever instills excessive fear in his household, if anybody brings hate and anger in his home, and fear in his home, that the wife lives in fear, or other people in the house live in fear, brings about 3 terrible sins: gila aroyis, illicit relationships, shvichas domim, the spilling of blood, v'chilul Shabbos, and the desecration of Shabbos. Yeah. So what are these 4 things? These 4 things mean that gila aroyis is hate, and they're going to break the relationship down. And the Gemarah is going to see about Shabbos. Amar Rabba said, "Hi, Damid Rabbanan." This is what the rabbi said. Shalish devarim tzarich oidem leima b'sebeisei erev Shabbos sheb'chashech. There are 3 things a man must say to his home on the eve of Shabbos before dark. He has to ask his wife, Shaitem, did you separate Maisa? Did you take off when you made the food? Before you made the food, did you make sure to take challah off the bread, the challah that we're going to eat tonight? Did you take Maisa from all the produce that we're going to be eating in the house? Did you do that? Araftem, did you make a native? Are we able to carry from one place to another place on Shabbos? Hidlikas aner, did you light the Shabbos candles? Hidlikas aner, did you light the candles? Tzarech. And it's necessary to make sure that these preparations were completed. Lemeninu b'nechusa, he should say it calmly. Kehecha de kibla, so that the people in the house, his wife, his daughters, whoever else in the house, should accept this from him. He shouldn't say it in an angry tone. He should say it in a nice way. I never heard this. I never heard this teaching. But I do this because that's the logical thing to do. So even though everybody's in a rush on Shabbos and everything needs to be done before night, and if it's not done, you're not going to be able to eat, and everything needs to be, did you put the fire on your wife is make sure the food is warm for Friday night, make sure the fire is on, make sure the oven is on, make sure the food is done, all these things, but you should all say it b'nechusa. You should say it pleasantly, so it shouldn't put any fear and anger in the house. It says this, wrote down, you shouldn't bring fire into the house on Erev Shabbos. Everybody's very excited on Erev Shabbos. Everything needs to be done on especially the short Fridays, and you shouldn't bring more anxiety that there is already Erev Shabbos in every Jewish household. No man should bring more anxiety that is already there. A person should never instill excessive fear in his household. Because we know a story that there was once a great man who put fear in his house. He ran his house with a fear, with like a dictator. and in fear they fed him a major thing. They fed him they fed him a non-kosher food. Umanu, and who is this? Abba Chanina ben Gamliel. This was a Chanina ben Gamliel who would happen to him. Yeah, I don't know what the story is exactly. Let's see. So the Gemara continues. What do you mean they fed him something prohibited? How's that possible? How's it possible to say they would feed him non-kosher? If you find by the righteous their animals, and we find many stories in the Gemara that even the animals, God doesn't bring something negative to them. It's a famous story. The Gemara says the guy Tano sold an animal and it didn't work on Shabbos. Why? Because the animal the Tana had to go to the animal, tell him, you're not mine anymore. You can already work on Shabbos. But we see that nothing negative comes even to the animal of a tzaddik. So if it doesn't come to the animal of a tzaddik, nothing negative comes to the animal of a tzaddik. So you're telling me that Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel ate non-kosher? Are you serious? How's it possible? Cancel. They tried to feed him a major thing. They tried to trick him. But he didn't eat it. And what was the bava gadol? What was the major thing that he did? Tried, but he didn't eat it. And what was the prohibited food that they tried? Evim and achai. They tried to feed him. Evim and achai. They went to an animal. They ripped off the leg of the animal before they shechted it. How would Rabbi Chanina ben Deisa? How would Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel know that? They brought him this leg. They told them it was shechted. The animal was slaughtered. I mean, it was slaughtered, but the leg was ripped off before it was slaughtered, and he would not eat it. So he almost fell into it. He almost fell into the situation. So the people in charge of preparing the meals to Chanina and Gamliel had lost the meat they were planning to serve because they were afraid of Chanina. So because they were afraid of Chanina's reaction, that was that his servants were afraid of him. And because they were afraid of him, because he ran his household like a dictator, he almost came to eat a davar asa. So they were afraid of him, so they ran out of meat, and they ran out of food that they were going to serve him, and they were afraid of his wrath and his anger. That they went and they went and they brought him chas shalom, they ripped off from an animal a leg, and they tried to feed him that leg. So he didn't do it ultimately, he didn't eat it. So we see how anger, the Gemara says, you see how anger, a person that's angry, that what it can come to, because people are afraid of another person's anger, that chas shalom, they will not because they wanted to feed him non-kosher, because they were afraid that they would tell him, oh, we have no food, the food got lost, he's going to start screaming. So they went and they did something that they thought that they can hide and get away with it. So the Gemara says, you see what can happen, chas v'shalom, if you get angry and you bring fear in your house and your family is afraid of you. Shalom. Okay, that's the end of the Gemara. The Gemara says, holding 7a, 1. Maruk sent a question to Rabbi Lezer. Now these people who attack me. He's in the bottom, you see number 4, it says literally who stand over me. Marukva was being installed and verified by someone who was opposing him. He was being bullied. The Gemara below will identify Marukva as an adversary, as Geniva, who was a great scholar. His attacks on Marukva were his only shortcomings as a parent from the Gemara. We'll see later the Gemara. So it was a verbal attacks. In essence, Ash says it was a verbal attacks. They were verbally attacking Marukva. So These people that are bullying me will be yadi limarson lamachos, and it's within my power to tell the government on them. Mao, what should I do? Should I go and tell the government on these Jews that are being bullying me? I had a question. Maruk asked Rabbi Lezer. So Rabbi Lezer replied and said, Shitu v'kosovlei. Rabbi Lezer scored some lines on a paper, and he wrote, Amarti, he wrote him a pasuk. That's why he did Shitu. He made the line, because he wrote him a pasuk. He answered him with a pasuk. And the pasuk was, it's a pasuk in Psalms, Amarti eshmar derachai mechatoi v'l'shomi eshmar levi machseim ba'oid rosh l'negdi. Which says, I said, I will guard my ways from sinning, with my tongue. I will guard my mouth with a muzzle, even while the wicked ones stand before me. This is a pasuk, chapter 39, verse number 2. So in essence, he told him, since he wrote a pasuk of Tanakh, he made shitut, he made the line, and he told him this pasuk. He wrote down this pasuk, and in essence, he answered him that Afal pi shadoshla negdi, even if the wicked are fighting against me, Eshmil lifi machsim, I'll guard my mouth, I'll muzzle my mouth. So that's what he told him, that even though that there are people that are against you and they're fighting you, you have to be quiet. So Marukva responded, and he said, Kometzai tuva. These people are really, they're getting under my, they're getting they're doing really, they're bullying me. What should I do? Well, I can't. I'm trying to lose my self-control, not to do something against them. I have the power to do something against them. Amalei. So Rabbi Lezer responded to him, and he said, Maruk answered him. Oh, my battery is going, so I had to end this off. It says, a pasuk, wait silently for the salvation of Hashem and long for Him. Another pasuk in Tehillim, chapter 37, verse number 7. So he said to him, and what does that mean? Doim LaHashem, seek Hashem with the redness of the sun. Doim, the term doim is hermetically understood here as the verb from the term demoy mechama, which refers to the redness of the sun shortly after sunrise and before sunset. When the sky is red, the verse thus suggests that through the merit of continuous Torah study from sunrise to sunset, one's adversaries will be defeated. Hello. So he told me, sit and learn Torah. Doim v'salalei. Doim Hashem. Learn Torah from the redness of the morning to the redness of night. And he will fell them for you, corpse upon corpse. Hashkim v'hadol v'esamedesh. You should be the earliest in the show and be the latest to leave. Vein kolam alein, and they will fall away from you. So here was the advice that Rabbi Lezer gave to Marukva. He says, you want to get rid of your enemies? Sit and learn Torah. You'll learn Torah by day and by night. God will work for you. Hadava, the Gemara ends and says, Hadava yotzim pi Rabbi Lezer. These words came out of the mouth of Rabbi Lezer. V'nasnu l'gneva b'koila.
You listened to the news.
And and suddenly the authorities on their own came they came and they put him in chains. They took Rabbi Marukva didn't have to do anything. He just had to go and sit in the Torah, and the Eivishter took care of his enemies. Shalach leila Marukva. So they sent to Marukva the following questions. Zmara manale dasa. How do you know that music? How do you know that music is prohibited?
Is it everywhere?
Wow. How do we know? Number 3, Rashi says there's music at parties. Taisus adds that this is the same prohibition applies to other forms of indulgence in music, such as going to sleep to music or waking to it. Prohibition was instituted as a sign of mourning the destruction of Beis Hamikdash. They lived in time of the destruction of Beis Hamikdash. So he asked, Marukva was asked the question, how do we base on a pasuk? Shirta v'kasla, he made the etched lines on a piece of paper, and he wrote, the verse says, Al tismach Yisrael el gil kamen. The verse says, in Isaiah, it says, Al tismach Yisrael, rejoice now, Israel, in the joy of the nations. So number 14 writes, the Gemarah understands this to prohibit Jews from celebrating their times of happiness in the manner of the nations, namely with song. This verse refers to a time of exile, as we can see in the previous verse stated, I will send fire upon the towns of Judah, and I shall consume their palaces. So you need to have a little constraint when it comes to the time of Golus. For the Gemarah, so the Gemarah asks the question, why didn't the Marukva give him another verse? It says, another verse. It says, in Yeshayahu, it says, with music they shall not drink wine. Old wine shall be bitter to those that drink it. Whoa. Meaning, the verse, which also refers to the time of exile, indicates that the prohibition against music applies specifically to drinking feasts. It is therefore his apparent more penitence to his discussion than the verse cited by Marukva. This is more of a more powerful verse. So the Gemara answers, Imahu, if in that verse, I would think that only applies to instrumental music. But from your mouth, it might be permitted. Kamashmalan, therefore, Marukva informs us that even if you don't have musical interests, you just sing it with your mouth. It's something that in Gullus we should. Number 17, the bottom, the verse cited by Marukva prohibits rejoicing in general. This applies to singing as well as to instrumental music. It should be noted that this prohibition does not apply to music for the purpose of a mitzvah, such as to make a bride and groom happy at their wedding, or it's other today, you have to have music and be happy. It's a mitzvah to be happy. That means just for no reason, for just the sake of no reason, joy for just you just want to. You have nothing else to do, and therefore, at the time of Golus, we should diminish this concept. The Gemara continues. It says Ravashi, my dersiv, kina v'dimayna v'adoda. It's written kina, dimayna, and adoda. The verse lists towns found in the territory of Yehuda. Kina v'dimayna v'adoda. I know dimayna. I heard of dimayna. Amalei. The verse is listing towns of Eretz Yisrael. Amalei, so Rav Huna said to Rav Nosson, don't I know that these are the towns of Eretz Yisrael? El Rav, give him A'igiza Amabatayma. However, Rav Givina Fanariga offered a mimetic explanation to this verse. Kol sheyesh be'kina al chaveirei. Whoever has anger, kina, that's the first word in the verse. Whoever has kina is jealousy. Whoever has anger against his fellow, but v'daimim, he translates v'daimim, means quiet. Then the next word is vadada sheichin ade ad oiselaydin. He who dwells forever means God will execute judgment on his behalf. So if somebody doesn't have jealous, doesn't have anger, even if other people are hurting him, the Eibishter will take care of it. That's why it's a very famous statement. Shomer tzadikim, shomer charpasam, ve'inam yeshivan. The righteous hear their own embarrassment and they don't answer. That's a righteous person. Stay silent. Amalei. So he said to him, Ela ma'ata. But now, the verse says later, another 3 verses, another 3 towns. The verse says, Tzilag, Umedamna, Uvisasasna. Another 3 towns. Hachinami, what's the meaning of these towns? Amalei. So he said to him, Ihava Rav Giva, mi Be'agiza hacha. If Rav Giva from Be'agiza were here, have a Amabay time, he would also give explanation to this 3 towns. Tzilag, Umedamna, Visasna. But he's not here. So, what's the meaning of the verse? Rav Acha, mi Be'achaza, Amar Bahachi. So Rav Acha comes and saves the day. Rav Acha, Be'achaza comes and says as follows. Kol mi sheyesh be'tzakas. Legima. Anyone who has complaint about his livelihood, achaveda, so that's tzaka, the first word is tzaklag. Tzakas legima, so he puts that into 2 words, and he's quiet. So anyone who has complaint about his livelihood against his fellow, and is nevertheless silent, somebody's ripping him off in business, somebody else is hurting him in business, and he's silent. Sheichin bisner oisleidin, the one who dwells in the thorn bush, which is God again, who was there in the thorn bush when Moshe Rabbeinu met the snare. That's a tzalak umedamna. Tzalak means somebody who's being made to somebody. He's pressing himself on his business, and he taking away another person's business. But the guy just is quiet. He's humble. He realizes it's min hashamayim. The cessness of the Eibishter will take care of him. God will execute judgment for him. It's a wonderful time to learn with you. In Mitchem, so right now we're holding 782. In Mitchem, next Monday we'll continue the Gemarah. I hope that we'll be together and sit together and learn the Gemarah together. It's beautiful Gemarah Gemarah Gittin. If not, we'll do it again on live Torah Direct. But I thank you for learning with me this Gemarah. If you didn't have the Gemarah, I know it's hard to follow Gemarah without a Gemarah. If you didn't have the Gemarah, you should get a Gemarah Gittin. We're holding Gittin, the first book of the first chapter. We're holding a chapter, first Perek, maybe get. And we're holding it on page 782, and I'll see you, Meitchem, next week. Tomorrow morning, you can connect again, and we'll learn Chassidus at 6:15 a.m. Let's hope, pray to God that God takes away this virus from the world, and we can again sit together in the Chabad and learn together the way it should be. And the only best way of Chavrusa is face to face. Have a wonderful evening. Have a good night.